The biggest concern for training camp for me always, as a big Vikings fan, you guys know that, I'm always terrified of injuries happening. I can still remember being in Acme. I'm 18 years old, so actually 17, working in the bakery, and I get a text from one of our good friends. It's just like, Teddy's down, looks bad. And the asshole wrote LOL, like all that. And I was like, oh, come on, man. So I go back into the back room, look at my phone, and I see like he blew up his knee. Everything's destroyed, carted off. People are crying, throwing up, the whole nine. And I started crying in the back of the bakery at 17 years old. I had tears in my eyes. And I came back and, putting cookies together, and they're like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. so training camp injuries are always a concern for me. And Joe Burrow strained his calf at the beginning of Bengals training camp. It was a non-contact injury. He was carted off. Zac Taylor said he'll be out for several weeks. It wasn't as bad as people thought it could be, but again, you got to be careful with these things. And when Zac Taylor gave an update recently, he said the timeline is several weeks from when I said several weeks. So we don't really know exactly what's going on with Burrow. We're hoping he'll be okay for week one. Jamar Chase had a really interesting quote. He said, I told him I don't want him out there. I sat out an extra game just to let my hip heal all the way up. You don't want to cause problems later in the season. As long as you're there after week 5 and on, we're good, brother. And if you look at the Bengals' first 5 games, at the Browns, versus the Ravens, versus the Rams, at the Titans, at the Cardinals, couple important games there at the start, 2 division games. And we know how important winning the AFC North will be. We know how important the 1 seed will be in the AFC. That could be the difference between getting to the Super Bowl or not. How patient, Ziggy, can Cincinnati be with Joe Burrow?
They can be patient until he is 110%. I mean, look, if Joe Burrow misses 5 games there, they probably still go 3-2, maybe 2-3. But the thing is, like this Bengals team, we know they can go on the road in the playoffs and win. Yep. In a tough environment, Joe Burrow is the coolest quarterback since Joe Montana. Like he can handle the pressure. The thing that you have to worry about, especially with something like a calf strain, is those injuries are really easy to re-aggravate, almost as bad as hamstrings. And if Joe Burrow tries to play through it at 90%, the offensive line doesn't click game 1, and he gets hit and re-aggravates it, makes it worse, and has to miss 8 or 9 games, and then still can't come back 100% week 10, week 11, that's a disaster. The season's almost over.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's actually pretty likely he starts week 1. I don't think this injury is super bad. But if their doctors say, he's only 95%, there's a 20% risk of re-aggravation, let's hold him out a couple weeks, you have to do it.
I agree with you because, like you said, if you lose Joe Burrow and you're the Bengals, season's over. It doesn't matter. And you can roll into Buffalo. You can roll into Cincinnati. They've done it and win those games. So I'm with you completely that if he's not 100%, hold him out for a week or 2. Like it really shouldn't matter that much. But then I go and look, and now just to play a little devil's advocate here, last year they were 0-2. They lose to the Steelers in overtime week 1. They lose to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys in week 2. Those 2 games, they ultimately wound up deciding whether or not they were the 1 seed. And so if they had won those, they would have hosted the Chiefs. So we know they're 2-0 at home against Kansas City since Burrow and Mahomes have taken over. Like, there is reason to look at these and say, okay, if he's 95% healthy and you're playing 2 division games, we just said the Ravens, the Browns, the Steelers, all of them are going to be competitive this year. The AFC North is going to be hard to win. It's not a walk in the park like it should be for Jacksonville. I can see reasons why people would want to put Burrow in if he's 98, 99%. But I'm with you. I agree. If he's not 100%, you just got to be careful because the worst thing in the world that could happen is this calf injury turns into an Achilles injury, which you sometimes see that, even like Kevin Durant, for example, calf, Achilles, and he's out for a long period of time. So I'm with you on that. I thought,
yeah, I mean, and again, even if it's not an Achilles, even if it doesn't develop into that, like what matters, I think, isn't how well Joe Burrow is feeling, right? We know he can play through pain. He's a very good quarterback. Joe Burrow at 95% is better than most quarterbacks in the league, certainly better than everyone else on the Bengals. The only thing you have to think about is re-aggravation risk.
Yep.
Because again, like even if it's not an Achilles injury, it's just he re-aggravates it and has to miss.
It's the last thing you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's preseason right now, right? So like we're not worried about the fact that he's missing weeks. But if this happened during the season, we'd be closing in on almost 3 weeks out.
Yep.
And you miss 3, 4, 5 games. That's terrible.
All right, so we're in agreement here. Keep him out. Look, if he has to miss 4 weeks, just make sure he's 100% healthy because the Bengals should be fine. But I do think that there's a little bit of that risk in a competitive AFC. But yes, we agree. 100% healthy Joe Burrow. That's how it has to be. I'm so nervous with this water here. I usually have a water bottle or something with a lid on it, and we have all this expensive equipment around. I'm just waiting to knock it over as I'm waving my hands here. In Washington, there is some chaos
before we
going
move on. I do have a quick question because I was talking at my job, I was talking with one of the guys. Sure. And it's kind of random, but we're talking about Joe Burrow, right? So
I have no idea what's about to come out of this guy's mouth.
Don't worry. And it was just a fun, real quick conversation. Like, Herbert just got 5 years, $265 million.
Yeah.
Do you think they'd sign Burrow for for a Patrick Mahomes deal, like a 10-year, something crazy?
No.
I don't think.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah, go ahead, Ziggy.
The way the Bengals have historically done business is they will not guarantee money after the first year. Now, they've been willing to bend that a little bit this offseason, right? You can look at they changed their rules a little bit. Like Trey Hendrickson, for instance, he got that extension a little bit earlier than players usually do when you're with the Bengals. He got an extension 2 years out. Usually they won't sign them more than 1 year out. But to get the Patrick Mahomes deal, the Browns are going to have to guarantee, the owner, Paul Brown, is going to have to guarantee Joe Burrow money for like 6 or 7 years out. And that's just not how they do business. So I fully expect him to sign. He'll get a big guarantee on his deal, but I don't think it'll be more than 2 or 3 years. And if you're Joe Burrow, signing a 10-year deal is placing a huge cap on your earnings potential. We've already seen how, maybe it's a good decision or not, but that's hurt Patrick Mahomes' money big time. I think that's going to be a unique case.
Yeah, the market being look, I have my issues with the market being reset for every quarterback who's coming up. I just, it's at some point it has to stop because some guys, some guys shouldn't reset the market. It's just fact of the matter.
These aren't big time market resets, right? You look at some positions like Aaron Donald reset the market.
Yes, no, he did, but
Justin Herbert getting $500,000 a year more than Lamar Jackson doesn't.
And I'm okay with
Trent Williams guys. Reset the market.
I'm looking at and I don't know if they completely reset the market or not. Did Watson still reset the market?
Watson reset the market and fully guaranteed, but that was a weird contract.
Yeah, it's like I just think at some point you gotta end with these star quarterbacks, everyone resetting something. Burrow's worth it. He'll be worth it, in my opinion. I think most people's.
Yeah. It was just a random question, especially since he's hurt now and
he should get the extension before he goes on the field again, and I assume that will happen. But it's never safe to assume.